Right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Lens Lounge. And this evening, we've got Jon Bird with us. So I'll just bring Jon in now. Good evening, Jon.
Good evening, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Not at all, it's our pleasure. So, to start off, everyone, something a bit different. Jon's got a painting he wants to share with us and talk us through. So we'll just pull this up on the screen, and if you just talk us through, Jon, this painting, and then we'll get on with the actual interview, okay?
Right, this is a painting by Marcus C. Stone, a late Victorian painter, artist from London. Studied at the Royal Academy, done his apprenticeship under his father, and I believe he's got stuff exhibited in the Tate.
Mhm.
How this relates to me is not that I'm related in any way, shape, or means to the artist, but a print copy of this hung on my grandparents' bedroom wall.
Okay.
Hung there, obviously, for the entire time I knew my grandparents. It then got passed on to my parents, and it's now hanging on their bedroom wall. Um, I have distinct memories as a child being shipped off from home, which was in East Ham, London, not far from Upton Park. And we would be shipped off every school holiday, every half term, summer, Christmas, Easter. We'd be shipped down to my grandparents' place in Capel-le-Fern, which is a village halfway between Folkestone and Dover.
Okay.
Very rural, very countrified, and this obviously was hanging on their bedroom wall.
Mhm.
Obviously down there, very, very different to where I was brought up. At home, it was terrace streets. The only greenery was your formal parks. So being left mainly to our own devices, myself and my brothers initially, being able to just run around the countryside was something very different for us, and it kind of set a scene to my love for the countryside. And this picture always sticks in my mind. Um,
Okay.
I remember as a young child jumping into bed with Nan early in the morning, and she would tell us stories about what might be happening in this scene, um, just making them up as she went along. And she would do that all the time. She would make up lots of stories about family. Some we found out were true, some not so true. Uh, her environment. It, just make up loads of stories.
Okay.
And so this really kind of set my imagination, really. When I now walk through the forests, it's those kind of memories that I have, and that kind of view that I'm looking at there. That's what comes to mind when I'm on my walks, and it's something I aim for. And I was actually looking at this earlier on, thinking, yes, one or two of my shots are very much like that, and yeah, it's obviously had a bit of an influence. So
Okay.
that's the style of the painting. Um, a little trip down memory lane for me, and a little bit of inspiration of where I get my ideas from and what I'm looking for when I go out with my camera in the forest.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's something completely different. So I'm sure everybody listening to this will be quite enjoying that little story. It's a beautiful painting, I have to say. I do love it.
Yes, he did lots of that kind of shot with the models.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you'll notice in my works I don't have people unless they're there by accident.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. So, well, thanks for sharing that, Jon. That's something really interesting, a bit different. We've not had anything like that before, so I really appreciate that. So, so moving on, like we like to find out from most people, if you could maybe just take us back on, your photography journey, how you started, and we can just take it from there and see how you proceeded into photography and what got your interest. If you start from the beginning, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah. I suppose, like most people, there's always been cameras around in my lifetime. My grandparents always used cameras, and that's gone through my parents, and they bought us cameras when we were young. I remember using the box brownie of my nan, watching my granddad set up his film camera and curse us because he'd wasted a flash bulb when we were pulling faces. And it's always been there, but it was always holiday snaps, the general thing, and family. My own start really in photography when I left school, I joined the Navy, and I had bought for me a second-hand DSLR, and decided I was going to learn how to use that. And in my travels around the world, record wherever I went. Needless to say, I had a fairly short Navy career. It was only about 6 years. I didn't use the camera too much. Other things took over. But I did actually learn how to use it. But then I found that the Instamatics and everything were so much easier to use, and they took over straight away. But I'd never really forgotten how, setting up the aperture and focusing and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I left the Navy. I went into the police force, did my career there. And towards the end, my son was getting married over in the States. And I decided that's a great excuse to buy myself a new camera. So this was about 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when I first got my first proper DSLR, Canon 760, medium kind of range, sitting there. And I then sort of decided that take the wedding, a few bits of scenery, and it sort of progressed. My Instagram page, as it was then, was just a social family one with holiday snaps, etc. I noticed that some of my shots were getting a few more than the usual family members liking them, a few extra people, got 1 or 2 followers, put more up, and it kind of snowballed. So those early shots people enjoyed. I hope they did anyway. And it kind of took off. Since then, 8 years later, I lost that original page. For some reason, Instagram didn't like it and took it down. And I started again a couple of years ago with a new page. And it's slowly growing and hopefully slowly improving. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Jan, do you want to ask anything?
Yeah, I do ask this to everyone. With regards to your photography, the start was really interesting, and I just wanted to know, really, in terms of your Instagram, in terms of your photography itself, what's the how are you envisioning yourself, or envisioning yourself in terms of your growth as a photographer, and also with your page, how are you, what's your future plans for it?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I don't want to have it really take over I have lots of other things going on. I'm still looking after my elderly parents. I've got 2 sons who live over in North America. We do a lot of traveling there. Photography for me is it's a way of getting away from things at the moment. it's my my mindfulness, to use the common term. It's the way I sort of get away. I go away on my walks, and I harmlessly walk around the forest all on my own and snap away. So to see it, yes, I'd love to see it grow. I'd love to see, you know, sell a load of stuff and make some money, and that'd be fun. But that's not the be all and end all for me. That's just that if it was to happen, that would be lovely, you know. But it's not the be all and end all. Yeah, just I constantly want to try a few new things. Probably saw in on my page the mushroom shots. I tried the new light in there. I got some decent results. I just like experiment with new things, looking for new things, away from the forest side of things and the nature and woodlands, which I post. I had the opportunity to start doing some sports photography at the local football club, and I go down and photograph their home games and supply them with the pictures, which is totally different. So I don't see myself becoming a full-time professional photographer, but
Yeah.
it's a great hobby. It gets me away from a humdrum, and if it was to develop into something a little more, I wouldn't say no, but it's not directly something I'm positively going out for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that means then that you have the if you don't mind me saying so, is that you have the privilege actually of enjoying your photography without the pressure of creating content every day, just because, you know, there is that commercial side of it.
The only pressure comes from myself.
Yes.
That's it. I don't have the outside influence.
Yeah.
As far as the photography goes, anyway. So that's no. There's nobody pushing deadlines or wanting things done, and no. I had enough of all that. That was work.
Exactly.
And photography is not work. It's a hobby and something you enjoy, I reckon. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think moving on, what I'm quite interested to hear, because I know on your Instagram profile you've got a nice little quote where you say, following the path east of the sun and west of the moon. So maybe just tell us a wee bit behind that, John, if you don't mind, because it's really quite nice, these words.
That is another flight of fancy, as you were. It comes from, or it's basically a Norwegian fairy tale, folk tale. And it's all about, or the folk tale, if I remember right, is the usual thing. A bad witch turns the prince into a white bear. The white bear traipsing through the forest, meets a girl who falls in love. She doesn't love him though. The bear asks the father persuades him yes. Anyway, the long story is the bear gets taken away by the witch up into a castle miles away from anywhere, and she can't find him. So she asks the four winds to direct her. And in the end, basically, she has to follow that path, the impossible path, really, east of the sun and west of the moon. It's a journey you cannot make. So it's got to be a journey in your imagination, which is really what some of my pictures turn into.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, that's great. And really, I think moving on from that. So, what was it that, because I know I've seen all your images, but what actually drew you into woodland photography, John? What was the thing that attracted your attention?
Other than that painting we talked about earlier, it was just I walk a lot. I walk a lot, and I like to go off around the forests around the local town here, Brentwood. And there's a particular oak glade in Wild Country Park, which you get those views out across the park underneath the spreading boughs, and with the light in the distance, it just caught my eye, caught my imagination, and I took one afternoon a series of pictures out there, and it just had me hooked then, I suppose, of doing the woodlands. And I just keep going back and looking for new compositions. It's ever changing, as you know, out in the woodlands. It's always different. You go to the same place the following day, something's moved, a branch is broken, half the leaves have disappeared. It's constantly changing. The weather's different, sun's in a different place. So yeah, and I also find that the woodlands, I mean, everybody goes on about the golden hour, you know, that hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and yes, the light's brilliant. But you go into the forest and you can take pictures any time of the day, and it doesn't matter where the light's coming from. You get that contrast and shade as different patterns of light come down through the forest canopy. So that the time of day doesn't matter. You just make it work for you. If
That's
you
right.
see it, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I love getting out there in the woods. Always have, and like I said before, it's that storytelling aspect as well that I find in the woods. You just look through, and I let my imagination wander, and I might just see a view and think I can, you know, that's a story, and I try and get that across.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it later, but that's because I can gather that's good. But Jan, do you want to ask anything else in the meantime?
Yes, I'm fascinated with what you've said about, you know, the yeah, I agree that lots of books on photography, tips on photography always says that look at this is like the right time to take photos. You shouldn't take photos during midday because the contrasts are so harsh, etc. And you're right. In a woodland, you always got the canopy. You've got all of that would help basically in the lighting aspect of it. What I wanted to ask actually is that what's your there are people who say that, oh, it has to be the light that's important. I need to have that light, work with the light in getting, you know, in getting the right shot. But I wanted to ask you, for you, what are the elements that needs to be present or at least there for you to actually take that shot that encourages you to take that shot?
Yeah, it is the light, but I'm not looking particularly for that cross light you get when it's low in the golden hours or anything like that. I'm looking more for an area of light, as you were, that's going to draw the eye. You know, I would try and get the eye to go along a path to a bright area at the end of the path, or it's not necessarily a path, but just a gap, clear gap off between the trees with light at the end. Just something to draw you through. So I'm looking for light, and whether it's always there or sometimes a little bit further helps. That's the kind of imagery I like to do, to drag into the picture to an area. And it's not always light. Sometimes I find that dark hole that you might find, because when I look at something, it's the contrast. So if there's a dark patch surrounded by your eye is going to be drawn into that dark area, which is inside that light. So it's really the contrast between the two that catches my eye. So, you know, it's like looking down the rabbit hole into that dark.
Yes.
The interest is down that hole.
Yeah.
The same way, looking down the tunnel to the light at the end.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, but the same. It's the similar thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah. So it's about a point of interest.
Point of interest doesn't have to be for me a particular tree. Well, I do use that. It doesn't have to be a particular object or people or anything. It can be just that patch of light, that the area that you want to move into.
Yeah,
I always think that
inviting
I
the
always
viewer
think that I'm trying to get people to move into the picture rather than just watch it from the outside. Is to walk in, go through it. That's what I try to build into it.
So it's like inviting the viewer to actually experience more or less what you have experienced while seeing that shot. So it's like inviting them to the story more or less.
Yeah, that's it. And kind of encouragement to go out and explore for themselves as well.
Yes, and just a follow-up to that, because you did say that was a really good leading to my next question, because woodland photography, landscape photography, I think people, photographers always looking for spaces or places that, you know, not everyone, because there are places where thousands of photographers has been there, done that, took the photo, got the t-shirt, etc. There is always that need to be, you know, the first person to discover this or to show something authentic and unique. I see this in a lot of posts in, you know, when I troll down Instagram and other social media, where local people or other people say, yes, that's a really nice place, but now you put it all over social media, we will be run over by Instagrammers who wants to post or whatever. So what's your opinion on that?
I don't myself particularly go out to those places. I'm not into particularly visit. There are one or two locations I have thought, I want to go and take that. And I have done that. Luckily, I've not been there with all the crowds. Been there on my own most of the time, which is nice. I do get fed up with seeing loads and loads of the same thing all the time, and you see the same shots done time and time again, some good, some bad, some indifferent. And it's a bit of overkill, and they kind of lose impact.
Yeah.
In a way, they become not boring, because I think the really good ones still stand out, but you can just, especially on social media, another one of St. Paul's, another one of St. Paul's, another one of St. Paul's. You know, you can start flicking through. To see something different can make you stop scrolling. It's very difficult though to do in the forest, because lots of trees look the same. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So
but I think,
it's quite, I find it fascinating actually, because someone that I admire a lot, you know, as a photographer is Adam Gibbs and also Thomas Heaton, and they always say that you know, don't be afraid to go into places that other photographers has been, because when you get there, each of us has our own way of looking at things.
Oh yeah.
And you might find that actually you see a shot that no one has done it yet, and so I go with that philosophy, but at the same time I like adventuring over fields and other things but then if you ask me where the hell that place is, I wouldn't know.
No. There's loads of my shots that I wouldn't have a clue where to find them again.
Mhm.
Not that, but there's the odd few which I seem to take time and time again
Mhm.
as I walk my routes. And it's strange because they're all different, because
Yeah.
I'll arrive there at a different time of day. I'll stand in a slightly different place. I recognize the shots, and I've compared them with one, and yeah, it's amazing how you can just come across the same, and the same thing
Mhm.
catches your eye, but
Mhm.
it's a totally different reason,
Mhm.
because it's a different time of day, because the lights change, because the
Yeah.
weather's changed, different time of year.
Yeah, that's right. Changes all the time, doesn't it? With the
Yeah.
leaves falling off and everything, you know, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's captivating for me as well. Okay, right. I think we'll move on to the next, because I mean, obviously, what I like about you, and we've touched on it already, but I like the stories that you make up. You know, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, what was the inspiration? Was that to go with with the book at the beginning with the painting? What was your inspiration to write these little stories? Because I think they're wonderful what you do.
They're not all stories. A lot of them are stories.
Mhm.
I did a whole period where they were nearly all stories. Some of them are I talk about nature. Um, one or two I talk about technique or places I've visited. I might talk about a trip when I was over in Canada. I might have spoken about where I was and that type of thing. But the
Mhm.
stories, um, again, that comes out of the imagination taking over, walking around. I did a trip to Hathersage and walked Padley Gorge.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you know the area
No,
or
no,
seen
not
pictures of
personally.
it. It's it's a steep gorge running off the Peak District, um, rushing water, lots of ancient oaks, all gnarly and twisted, and it's a mecca for the photographers in the area. So while I was there, you just have to walk it, have to take some pictures, and a couple of other woods nearby. And there was one particular wood, Broggett Wood, and a place called Grindleford. Great names.
Mhm.
And it had almost like a small flagstone type path running through this wood, which made lovely leading lines, and I was playing with different ways of editing and all what. And it just struck me, it was fairy tale-ish.
Mhm.
So it got me on to thinking, well, there's water there, there's forest nymphs, there might be an ogre under the bridge and that kind of thing. And it just, as I'm developing or editing the picture, sometimes the way I start to edit influences my mind. I'm thinking, well, something's hiding in those shadows or watching me from over there. I can hear branches breaking, and what is it? And it just it. So I just start typing, and it
All right.
develops, and I get a bit of a storyline. And I tried over a period of 6 months or so with various pictures to build up a narrative through them.
Mhm.
A bit of a journey. I wrote in first character, so it was all I did this, I did that type thing. And it was describing a journey. I was being pursued through the woods. I was looking for the light, which was the way out. Was I being chased? And this was, I had a mission. There was something I was carrying. But what I tried to do was never actually say what that mission was,
Mhm.
who I was, male, female, was I some kind of elf or man or woman, child, whatever. I did, and just then leave that up to the reader's imagination.
Mhm.
I don't know if that came across,
Mhm.
but it's again, as well as using the image to try and drag people in, I was trying to give people some something else to think about while they were looking at the picture, if they bothered to read it. You know what Instagram's like. If they bothered to read it, did they see that same kind of story? Could they imagine? Could they embellish it themselves? You know, something else to try and gain a bit of interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's really why I started, and you know, it's just the imagination goes into overflow, and I start on a couple of words, and that develops into something else, and by the end of it, it might be totally different to what I started with. You know, it's but then again, that's a bit like my editing sometimes as well. I'll sit down with one idea, and something else happens.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they all turn out good in the end.
No, it's good. It's very different because it's different. It's a different way, you know. Because when I read them, I think it's good because it lets your imagination run when you're reading them as well. You know, I think it's great. You know, and I often wonder how people can do that because I'm not that literal. But I just describe where I am and what I'm doing. You know, but I think it's wonderful.
There's a guy I follow on Instagram. Michael something or another. Design 69, I think, is his page. German fella, and he does lots of pictures in the German woods. Very dark images, usually with a full moon, and loads of light coming off the moon. Very deep, moody type pictures. And he writes reams. He's got to be related to the Grimm somewhere, you know. I mean, he's a real storyteller. And that's kind of interesting to read those as well, and that's kind of a bit of inspiration as well.
Yeah, there are people that are like that, you know, because I know there's a lady called Lorraine Gilmore. She writes poems for some of my images, and I think how do you know? But it's just wonderful because it's just like collaboration, isn't it? With these things happen.
Yeah,
you know, it's absolutely great.
Nice. It's nice to get somebody else to look at your work and get inspiration from it. That must be really pleasing.
Well, it is indeed. Aye, it's amazing, and I quite like reading them myself because it's almost like I'm looking at my image from the other side, coming back, you know, and looking at, this is how they've described it. You know, it's just completely different. I love it. You know, it's great.
And sometimes when somebody else gives you that kind of critique, you then start to look at your own image differently.
Aye. You do indeed.
Suddenly see something which you hadn't seen before. I mean,
I can relate to that, definitely. Absolutely. Right, well, I think it's about time we maybe looked at some of your images then. So I think we'll pull up the first one. It was called Stepping Stones.
Yeah. That is, that's actually in Box Hill in Surrey.
Okay.
And was taken 4 or 5 years ago now. My son was doing the London-Brighton bike ride, and I dropped him off at the racecourse over there where they start. And I visited 2 or 3 different locations on the way down to Brighton where I was going to pick him up. So obviously I had a bit of time to waste during the day. Box Hill was my first stop. Heard a lot about it, never visited there before. There's a small National Trust car park right at the bottom of the hill, and you literally walk out the car park and there's that set of stepping stones.
Okay, maybe give us a wee background of this image and where it is and what attracted you to take it.
It's Box Hill in Surrey, off to the southwest of London. I took my son over there because he was doing the London to Brighton bike race, and obviously had then to drive down to Brighton, and this was on the way. I stopped here and a couple of other locations to take photographs. Went into the small National Trust car park there, and this is literally meters from the car park, the first place I came across. The light was just, well, to my eyes, it was perfect. It like the first thing I saw, I thought that's a shot. stepping stones made a lovely leading line. The reflections were really good. So I just got on with it and set my tripod up and was all ready to take it was a long-ish exposure, wasn't mega long. But this couple kind of stood in my view. And as you know from the rest of my pictures, I don't normally have people, but they've really kind of set this image off. And in fact, there was another couple who were stood in the shadowy area at the back, but Photoshop got rid of them. I just left the main two. Yeah, it just that I love the light coming down through the leaves, in the water. The couple there stood in that patch of light. It all just made a nice, pleasing scene.
Yeah.
The sweep of the stones across the water, and that's what made me take the image in the first place, and it became one of my favourites. It's the favourite of my mother-in-law. It won me a competition in the club, and it got picked up by various websites and groups from the area. I think a cycling group and a walking group, Box Hill, around the area, and I've used it without my permission, and just, you know, that was the first picture that really got picked up and used anywhere. So that's why it became sort of one of my favourites. I'm glad you picked up on that one.
Yeah, I know the thing for me, because you know when I first saw it, my mind went to the old program Star Trek, and they're trying to get. I think they're looking at their beam me up, Scotty, beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, I can see that. It's the coloured tops, isn't it?
Yeah. And you know, it's like they're looking at the little machines. Come on, beam us up, you know. And this is that's the pod that they're waiting to get. You know, you have to go to us police, but didn't they? And they got beamed up. So. Yeah, but it's a lovely image, as you say, with the light and the leading line coming in, and I think you're right. These people just because otherwise you wouldn't have somewhere for your eye to go to. You know, it would just be like a scene with the leading line. But it's almost like that's where you're taking us to. You know.
Yeah, they do set it off. They do
absolutely.
Even though I didn't ask them to stand there, they just adopted the position nicely for me, and that was great.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, right, we'll move on. Unless, Jon, anything you want to say on this one?
I think I just want to say that you know, sometimes there are instances where you know, a shot just comes together, and like what you said, Jon, that the couple, you know, you didn't actually, you know, account for them, but they just appeared, and I think that made the shot. And that's one of the things with photography, is that photography is sometimes quite a game of chance, but excellent photo.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right, we'll move on to the next one. So if I can have the one that says "Said oak unto the fern." This is I love this one. Well, this is a wow factor one for me.
Thank you.
No, it's beautiful. I just love the soft. It's a really soft light. You know, it's just so. It's
just that little bit of mist.
Yeah, but it's just inviting, you know, with the mist that you can see, but even just the soft dappled light on the ferns and the leaves. So I'm just desperate to hear about this image because it's absolutely wonderful. I hope you've got this printed and framed.
I haven't, no. But I might. Right, this one, yeah, I'm literally stood on a footpath. I've not gone traipsing off into the mist of the forest or anything for this one. I'm on the footpath, and it's one of those great old gnarly oaks that just stands there and says, "Take my picture." And you know, and it's hard to resist that, isn't it? You know, you get a tree like that, and in that lighting. So again, it's when I just see it, and so there's a picture there. it needed a little bit of work. That the ferns weren't quite as bright as that in reality.
Mhm.
I brought them out, and again, I brought them out as I was thinking of what I was going to write with it,
Okay.
because that then fitted in my story.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've read the story. I've actually got it up here on the screen,
Mhm.
and I'll read it if I can.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I've read it, but just you read it because it'd be good for the viewers to listen to it. That'd be great.
Said the oak unto the fern, I have stood here and watched as the seasons have moved through the cycle for far more of those revolutions than most living creatures care to know. I've witnessed the comings and goings of many different events that have shaped my surrounding. I've seen small saplings grow around me to mighty trees and then succumb, returning to the humus from which they were nourished. I have been the provider of food and shelter and taken joy in the generations of birds and deer and all the woodland life as it has surrounded me year after year. So tell me, little fern that grows in the soil I feed each year with my leaves and shelter under my heavy branches from the harsh summer sun. Tell me what it is like to have but a brief time, for I will remember your stories and pass them on on in their short but important place in history of this place. One day my time will end, and I will pass as much as I can to the acorn that will grow in my place. So the history of this place will go on for as long as we are allowed to stand here and be caretakers of the forest.
Excellent. Oh, it's amazing that.
It just struck me then, as I started to write it, the relationship between the oak that stands there for hundreds of years and the ferns which grow and die back every year.
Mhm.
All the ecosystem in the forest, it all relates to one another. It all relies on one another,
Mhm.
and you know they share elements of the forest. Without one, the other doesn't exist really.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just that coming together of the forest. It was just something that got me thinking that oak's seen so much. It's got to have such stories to tell. I'd love to be able to go out and talk to the trees and listen to what the history they could tell us. I mean, that is not far from an Iron Age or the remains of an Iron Age farmstead.
Okay.
As best they know, and to think maybe not that tree, but the tree that stood there beforehand or the one before that may have been there at the time of them. You know, history for them is so different to us, and it just got me thinking the relationship there between the tree and the fern.
Yeah.
Again, imagination takes over, and I ramble off in my own head.
Yeah. No, but it's great because you'll be the same as me. You see characters and what they're representing in the woodland,
Yeah.
and that's what I like as well. But I mean, it's I can see there with all you can see all just off to we're looking at now, to the left of these ones that are all just that nice soft light, but you can see all the ones that are maybe dying back and then they're feeding the soil that helps nourish the tree and, that whole biodiversity system that they do offer in woodlands,
it's miraculous, really, isn't it?
It is actually, yeah.
And we're
yeah.
still learning so much more about it. It's fascinating.
Yeah,
I must admit, in the time that I've been out there in the forest, just the last few years, I've read more and more about the way they relate to one another. You know, how it dies back, the mycelium, the mushrooms, all in there. The way that one can't survive without the other. It's fascinating.
Well, you be like me. I think in the wood. I just wish some way, if we could just take a section through it and see under the ground all that mycelium and what's all going on that we can't see, but but all these people are sorry, people and trees. That's what I'm thinking. I keep them as people or things, but the trees, and because it is amazing, and they protect each other, and the thing is, it's been proven that trees do effectively communicate, not like how we do, but they communicate in a different way, don't they? You know, to help each other, you know, with parasites and stuff. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, they warn one another that there's going to be drought. They can share water through the systems, and it's amazing what they do.
Oh, it is. It's mind blowing, and I think you're right. The more you get into it, and you read more, and you research more, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. You know, it's
yeah.
I love it. But anyway, sorry, Jan, we're going on here. Do you want to ask anything, John, of this image?
No, it's like what I said earlier. It is a really great shot. It tells a really good story, and it draws you in. And talking about drawing in, I just there's just one thing in the shot that kinds of disturbs me. Not really that disturb or something, but I just see that, you know, you get this whole photo and the tree and the shapes of it, and you know, and the soft lights around it, but there is that little patch of light that kinds of, instead of letting me go around the tree and the surrounding bit, that patch of light just kinds of attracts me, and for me it kind of detracts from, you know, from the tree itself. I just wanted to ask John whether there was a reason why you left that kind of light, that light bit
on the ferns on the bottom right.
On the ferns, actually it's on the background trees. There's just this little sliver of leaves that's actually kind of yellow, you know, where the hump of the tree that looks like a belly.
So there's looking just sort of over the down behind the tree. Just you know how it is with the trunk.
Our eyes, we tend to get drawn to the brightest bits of the shot, and within that, just that area, the brightest bit is that which then draws me every time I look at the photo. It's the thing that draws me, and I just thought, like, maybe, I don't know whether it is something intentional that you left it there, or
no,
you know.
No, not intentional at all. When I created this one, my intentional lighting was the fern, the leaves over to the left-hand side, and basically the leaves on the oak, the more the foreground leaf.
It's the foreground.
That tree down, it's a bit of a hill there, and it's as you go down the hill. That tree that wasn't intended to catch the eye. I might have to go in and dull it down a bit.
I think I just thought, if you don't mind, my suggestion is just to dull it down a bit, to blend it with the rest of the, you know, the rest of the misty.
I think
so that it kind of just
it's probably just
keep the eye
just a small gap in the canopy where lights come through and hit it.
You can see that. No, you can actually you can see this coming from the top right. You can see that because it's coming down. But to be honest, it's all down to, because to me, you know, this is the great thing about what I love about photography, because you know, when you're looking through a woodland, you always get little patches that are catching the light. But to me, my eyes not in. I didn't even see that. My eyes drawn to the, you know, the circle. I'm seeing a circle of colour in the foreground. You know, I'm seeing the fern. You know, the yellows to the top right, and then just the soft sort of orangey hues. You know, I'm seeing a circle of colour, and then this tree and that's just, and to me that's the softening light dropping off, and then that, you know, that's what I love about photography, because we all see different things, you know. It's
and I
No,
always have the tendency.
I do see what you're coming through, because now you've mentioned it, it draws you. But
I know.
Yeah, it draws you, and I just like kind of, I like the tree. I like the way, it looks like, a belly in there, and then you've got you got the other one hugging, and in fact, I can even see like it almost looks like an elephant. So I like to explore the, that foreground and then the middle bits. It's just that my eyes keeps getting drawn into that, like that, just that sliver of light. So I'm and it's my fault maybe, because I tend to be quite detailed when I look at shots. and that's just sort of draws my eyes straight into.
You know what?
Right. Actually... we all see things in different ways, and
you know what?
We're all entitled to our own opinions, and
exactly. But you know what'd be interesting? I don't know. You know what would be interesting with this, because I was watching an old Joe Cornish video. Have you ever looked at this upside down?
No.
You should have a look at upside down, and then what you might find, try it upside down. It's hard to put into words without doing it, because quite often I invert my images upside down, and then it allows your eye to look at things that you're not naturally attracted to, because clearly we know that tree is the right way up. But see, when you flip an image upside down, it draws you to light and shapes in a way that we're maybe not programmed to look at them normally.
Yeah.
And because I've done it lots of times with things, and you might find by doing that, your eye might go to that patch that Jan's all brought our attention to that we didn't see. But if you had it upside down, that might be the first, oh, wait a minute, because then the tree doesn't look like a tree, because it's not, your brain's not looking at it from a normal. It's actually quite a powerful technique, and it was one of an old landscape thing I saw with Joe Cornish saying it, and I do it all the time with my images, because it actually does make a difference. It's quite strange.
Maybe I'll try that and start flipping everything upside down and having a gander that way and see if I change.
Yeah, but it's a good tip. So if anybody listening, I would just try that, because it's amazing how it works, because it allows you to see things differently. Because like I keep saying, our brain's programmed to tell us that's a tree standing like that. But when you flip upside down, it might then tell you, for example, but this one, I'm not saying it's an example, but it might make you think, oh, look at that top left, that's quite bright. Maybe my eye will go to there now. So, and then, because I've done that with one image where I had that, and I thought it looked okay, but when I flipped upside down, I thought, oh, crikey, look at that's really bright. I brought in a grad filter from that side, dulled it down a bit, turned it back up, and I thought, that's much better, because it's the same thing as looking at your images on a white screen or a black screen. It brings out the contrast. So it's kind of the same thing, but give it a go and see what you do, and if there's anything different, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that's certainly generated a lot of discussion. That one didn't.
Thanks for that, Jan.
Yeah, right. We'll move on to the next one then.
Right, this mushroom, I think I called it fantasy fungi. I planned to go, or I was invited to go along with some others from the photo club over to Epping Forest, specifically to go hunt the mushrooms. I'd never done this type of shot before, but I'd read that if you shine a strong light from above, it makes them glow. So I took a bike lamp with me, an LED bike lamp. Stuck my camera down on the floor, and just this was the first one I did.
Right.
And I was quite chuffed with that one. Turned out really well. What I did was I actually took 3 shots, and this was photo stacked. Basically, the front edge of the mushroom I did, the centre or the core, and a bit further towards the back, and the right and the back. So I wanted that just off at the back to give it a little bit of depth.
Mm.
So I think when it's absolutely sharp, perfect all the way, it doesn't look quite real, because that's not the way the human eye works.
Yeah.
So just the trailing edge is just that slight bit off. That's my excuse anyway, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, and I was just so pleased with that result. And that is basically the lamp would be just 6 inches above the mushroom, shining directly down on it, and it makes the underside, doesn't quite glow that bright and orange, but it certainly lights it up. And then I just enhanced the colours a bit, because although this was shot probably 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was a bright day in the forest. I had some other shots with the sunlight in the trees there, which I was really pleased with. So it's a very bright day in the forest, but because I'm shooting this with, I think, 100 ISO, and I was on quite a narrow aperture, with the light over the top, just sends the background black. And gives that sort of nighttime effect, as if the mushrooms lighting up the forest floor for all the little fairies and pixies to come round and play. And it just gave a really pleasing effect.
Well, you've certainly fooled me, because I would have guessed it was getting towards the latter stages of the day when it does get dark in the woodland. So you've certainly fooled me on that one.
No, it was midday, early afternoon. Quite a bright day. It's quite
interesting, because actually for me, when I'm looking at it, I wouldn't have thought there's actually light coming from above it. It's actually very clever, because it's almost like the light's inside the fungi, and the light's getting. It's almost like a lamp, It's shining the light down to the foliage in the foreground. That's amazing. What power the lamp was it? Can you remember? Was it a lumens? Quite a high power one, or
that one? I mean, it's quite a strong bike lamp, quite powerful. Off my son's bike, he doesn't use it anymore. He used to go racing around the forest, and he needed a bright light on his bike. So
that's amazing, really.
It now found its way into my photographic bag.
Now, was that just? Did you just try using the light in different angles, above, below, or did you was that just like the first thing, or did you do various angles to try and find the best one?
I did experiment with the light. Like I say, I'd actually read a couple of bits online, and sort of seen there the light was being shone directly down through the mushroom. It doesn't work with them all, every variety, but some of them just glow from the inside. They're almost translucent the way the light comes down through them. And it really makes a nice effect.
Did you use a macro lens for this?
No, it's my standard kit lens. Well, it's got the minimum focus on it. It's about 35mm, I think.
Okay.
It was the standard kit lens that came with my first camera, 35-135. No, 18-135 zoom lens. That's all I used. No special dedicated macro lens.
That's wonderful.
And I was very chuffed with the result.
Oh, totally. And I can see what you're talking about, because that's what all the detail where it's sharp is where it needs to be sharp. That's what I'm looking at there. At the front end as it swoops around, the back, and it's slightly in the shadows. It's not, that's not where your main focus of attention is. It's in that sort of that front quadrant, isn't it? As it swoops around, and you get these beautiful gills, with the light and the detail in them. And I like what you've done with the bottom, because it actually, if those leaves weren't illuminated, it would in theory be too dark. It's giving you that sense that that's casting that's just lighting up that little bit in the ground, just nice and softly.
It kind of gives you the scene where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe right down in the far left corner a little bright. That could be dulled down a bit, I think. Just keep your eye away from the corner, but other than that, yeah, quite pleased.
No, it's
Yeah, that's actually I like the way you composed it, because sometimes instinct would say put it in the middle, but having it on the third, the third part of the frame just makes it more dynamic. And I agree with you about that sliver of light on the other side of it. but it is an excellent shot, and given that it's produced from a kit lens, and also all those stacked, it isn't actually like overly stacked, and that that actually takes a bit, a lot of judgment call, and that makes it really, really good.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. What we're saying about the focusing of it, just leaving that little bit slightly off, it's something I try and put into a lot of my other shots. I don't like things sharp 100% front to back, because I feel that's not the way the human eye sees things.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing and everything around it is slightly off.
Yeah. I don't know about you, John, but for me and my woodland photography, I'm generally using aperture 5.6 or something like that for that effect as well. That's what I tend to do.
5.6 is normally what I stick at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're on the same page there. That's good. Okay, right. So, and our final image is something a bit different, which I thought was amazing. It's the lighthouse one with these crashing waves. And I think you named it Awesome Power.
Awesome Power. Yeah.
It's just awesome. I mean, it's just, for my eye, I just think, wow. And I can see at least two faces in the sea crashing up. That's what got me as well. So if you can maybe just talk us through this, where it is, and why you were there. Was it fortunate or was it planned?
No, this was planned. This was during Storm Ciarán, which was late last year. Caused a lot of mayhem along the south coast. A few members of my photo club decided we'd drive down there, because this particular harbour at Newhaven, it's a horrible harbour anyway for getting in and out. Newhaven's always hit bad by the storms, and it's always crashing over the harbour wall there. And you get down there, you have to fight for your spot amongst the other photographers, especially on that day, because it was still quite wet with rain as well as the sea spray, and the best vantage spaces were all gone. So it was a matter of standing out and getting wet. Yeah, this was a lucky shot, really, in a lot of respects, because the wave just crashed centrally. It is cropped in, but there was no waves crashing over, obviously to the right there, further along the harbour. That harbour wall is maybe 4 or 5 times the length of what you see there.
Okay.
And I have got one shot where the entire harbour wall has got a big wave coming over the top of it. But it's not come out as well as that. I love the way this one isolated against the background. And I haven't manipulated that isolation in any way. That is the greyness of the sky.
Oh God.
That was just the bleak, horrible weather. In fact, it's not so much of a colour pop with the lighthouse there. There wasn't a lot of colour elsewhere other than the red and bit of rust on the lighthouse. It was dull and grey. I took a little bit out of the stonework on the harbour wall, but other than that, that was the general colour of the scene.
Crikey.
But yeah, I love the way the runoff from on top of the harbour wall itself is coming out through those drains from the walls, forming those fountains, while the next wave is still crashing over the top.
It's amazing.
And I shot that on a burst, so you can see that the wave rising up, and a frame later, the lighthouse has disappeared. You know, it's engulfed by the water. But this one to me was the favourite because the lighthouse was just stood there waiting. It knew what was going to happen, and it was just waiting. And that's what made it for me, that shot.
Oh, yeah. You know what I think it is? It draws me to it. It's because, like you say, the wave, you know, there's nothing coming really from the left. It's almost, it's the angle, and it's just as if it's battered against that wall, and it's just going bush up, and then maybe if it's the wind, or if was it windy, is that blowing it over towards the right? You know. Yeah.
It almost looks like an explosion behind
That's
it,
right.
doesn't it?
It does, it does. That's what it's like. Hey, it's like the old, you know, it's, or now that you've said that, my mind's going back to the old movie, The Dam Busters, you know, when they had the bounce bomb and then it booming them.
And you see that great plume.
You know, but it's... No, it's absolutely awesome. And that's interesting to know because quite often what I've sometimes done with an image, you take all the saturation out, the colour, leaves it black and white, and you just bring back, for example, you bring back the red and the yellow channel. But you're saying that, but yeah, I can see what you're saying. It was just the nature of that night. It was that's just as it was, and you can even see the light in the lighthouse there. You know,
it was a little bit of colour in the wall and a tinge across the sea, but generally the sky, that was the colour of the sky.
Yeah,
it's a foul day, really was.
It's a bloody wonderful photograph. I'm sorry, but it's just I love it. Absolutely love it.
Thank you. So, and like I say, it is something different. It's away from the tree. It's still nature, though.
Aye.
And it's that interaction between the force of nature and man trying to control it.
John, are you familiar with Rachel Talabert?
Sorry?
Rachel Talabert. Do you know Rachel Talabert?
No.
You should look at Rachel Talabert. That's what she does. She photographs waves, you know, or crashing. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And she's probably not too far from where you are, actually, when I more think about it. Rachel Talabert, have a look at her stuff. Sirens is one of the books that she's got. Two books, the first one and the second one. And then you'll start to, and I'm not going to tell you where that face is, and then you'll have a study of it, and you will see it. But the clues in that first set of water as as draining through. About the third one, there. Yeah, just above there. Just go up a little bit, and there's a little face that I see. But it might take a while to find it, or you might see a different one. But
oh, you got me going now. I'm going to be staring at it later on.
How about you, Jan? Do you see it?
No, not really. I'll say no.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I can't, but maybe it's just how my screen is angled. But I like the way the whole scene just comes together. I think the whole shot just comes together, and you know, the details of it is amazing. I'm just thinking though, like was the harbor kind of a bit tilted.
A bit tilted.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of tilted to the left.
Yeah, it from the position I was in, it runs across on a sort of almost a diagonal, and then dog legs.
Mhm.
So it does give that impression that it is slightly skew-if, as
Yeah.
like a parallax error as it goes across.
But the verticals are not. The verticals are in the lighthouse, though.
Yeah. But I just kind of say that, well, I'm not saying it's an issue. I just thought that it gives me the impression of it actually trying to sink or something.
I know what you mean. When I have cropped this a little bit, and when I was looking at doing that crop and making sure I'd got the verticals, it was a little battle as to think, have I actually got it straight or not? Because it's the angle the wall comes out across into the sea.
Yeah.
You can see that.
And again, the white water in front of the harbour wall, obviously, as well, that kind of throws the eye off a bit as well, I think. But yeah, I had a little problem in my own mind when I was trying to think, is that straight or not? So I just went for that vertical on the lighthouse, and I stuck it at that.
Yeah, that's actually fine. I just thought, like, it just gives me that impression that because of the power of the waves and
it's
that
kind of
it
knocking the wall
kind
over.
That's it was about to sink or something. I mean, but sink on because it's if you notice the kind of the image, the weight of the image is actually on the on the tilted side. So
thinking about it now that you've mentioned it, I wonder whether it's purposely designed to slope slightly to allow the water to drain.
Yeah.
Right enough.
Come out through those ports.
Yeah.
I just thought it actually tells a bit of a story about that, this harbor, because of the weight and the way it's being hit by that it actually wobbled a bit.
No, you're probably right, John, because when you look at the way, I don't know if it's the wind, but the water's definitely running off to the left. It is running off, isn't it? I mean, I'm not even looking at the mirror. I'm looking at the one to the very far right, where you've got like I don't know if it's a rail, but you can see there that's running off to the left as well. So it might well be that it's actually by design, that because the verticals are vertical, so it is a bit of an illusion. But but I'm putting that aside. Oh God, it's amazing. It's like, I just wish. And it's funny when you said New Haven, I thought you were at New Haven up in Edinburgh and Granton.
I was pleased that I managed to drag out some detail in that cloud of water. Because when I first looked at the shot, it just looks like a grey, mushy mess. To be able to drag out some detail there, it really makes it.
Oh, definitely. Well,
I think having dragged that details, and also the lights and the shadows just adds to the movement. It just shows how it makes it more kind of dynamic.
Yeah, it's quite dynamic. It is quite dynamic, and the isolation in that grey backdrop.
Definitely, because it just basically illuminates that, doesn't it? It gives it that. It almost makes it help it be more three-dimensional, I think. Because when you look at the edge of to the right, that's really defined. It gives you that feeling of depth, doesn't it? When you look at it like that. Wow. Well, I think on that's a fantastic image to end this on, and it's been a fantastic discussion. I've loved every minute of it tonight. It's been great, and especially getting insight into your what you said about not just the stories and the other aspects of what you put into your photography, John. So it's been absolutely fantastic. So I really say a huge thanks for giving us your time and sharing those wonderful images with us.
It's been a pleasure. It's nice to speak to people that kind of have an appreciation of my weird and strange imagination at times.
No, it's not at all. I just wish I had the same half the imagination that I could put into my stories, but they're not all the same. That's the beauty of photography. You appreciate other people, that can do, can do things in different way. Because mine's is more about mine's is more about the story of my day out in the woods and what I'm doing and what I see, and maybe a wee bit what I describe if I see I'm developing, we're all developing it. You might see a tree, I called one recently the huddle because it looked like they were all silver birch trees, were all in the winter, no leaves, all grouping together to stay warm and keep themselves protected, but
see, you're getting it.
But other thing is, John, for those of us listening, or the people listening, where's the best place to find you or find out the rest of your artwork that you're creating?
Most of the stuff I do is going on to my Instagram page, which is at Jon Bird 266. And that's John Jon. Onto my Facebook. My Facebook page goes back a lot further because that didn't get closed down when my original Instagram did.
I remember that day. Yeah, it was a weird one, wasn't it?
I was shocked and horrified. Yeah, that's a different story. I still don't know why. But yeah, that's where I'm found. I don't have a website as such. I do put stuff up, trying to sell the odd bit on Photo for Me, which I've had a tiny bit of luck with. In fact, I sold the same picture 4 times last year, but it just happened to be of the Sycamore Gap. And it sold just after the cut down. Sales of that did quite well.
Well, the thing is, a terrible act, but maybe that might be, in some ways, at least people can buy images by those people who've taken them to remember what was there, So, but that's, unfortunately, it was one of these ones I wanted to see just because it's so iconic, but I've never been able to see it, and I never will because of that silly, mindless act of somebody, It's dreadful, but we'll put all the links to your socials and included with this. And Jan, do you want to say anything on a finishing note to John?
Yeah, thank you so much actually for sharing to us your art and the process of and the stories behind it, because anybody can take a photo and display it, etc. But the way you created it and you actually shared it with the story behind it and the thought process that you've shared with us as well, that makes it unique. And I think that what makes your work and art and sets you separate from the others as well. So thank you so much. It's been a privilege.
Thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, John, and I hope everyone's enjoyed this. And we'll just leave it there. So until the next time, bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.